We're now going to look at an example of international trade, an example where the world price is below domestic price. In addition to that, we're going to look to see what happens when a tariff is implemented. Now, if world price is above domestic price, tariffs don't matter because the country is an exporting country. But when they are importing goods, meaning the quantity demand is greater than quantity supplied, being driven by the lower world price, they become net importers. And a tariff is a tax on imported goods. And so let's first show what happens when we have the world price below. So here's the world price. And what we notice is here is going to be our quantity demanded. Here's going to be our quantity supplied. Where this distance from quantity supplied to quantity demand, that's the number of imports the country receives. So I'm going to draw that out. So that's the number of imports. Now what a tariff does is just raises the price to a higher price because the countries selling to the United States sell at the world price plus the price that they have to give to the government in form of a tariff. So as a result, the new price that they're going to face is the world price plus the tariff, where this vertical distance is the tariff. Now, if the tariff is all the way up to the domestic price or even above, then it just eliminates all international trade. So we're going to look at the interesting example where it's still below the domestic price. Well, now at that price, consumers are going to demand that amount, and producers are going to produce this amount, where now we have this distance here as their imports. And so immediately what we see is that the tariff causes our imports to decrease because of the higher price. And the question is, well, are we better or worse off? Well, what we notice, first of all, let's go ahead and identify the areas. Is consumer surplus is the area of the willingness to pay down to the price that the consumers have to pay. So they're willing to pay this price, but now they have to pay the price of the world plus tariff. So this now becomes the area of consumer surplus. Well, producers go from the price that they receive down to the supply curve. And so this is producer surplus. And so one thing we know immediately is that that whole area, that triangle we had before, or this triangle here, of the free international trade, well, we're missing some of that. Now we might be able to capture some of it, but it's clear now that consumer surplus is decreasing while producer surplus is increasing. So is tariffs good? Well, there'll be winners and losers. In this case, the losers are going to be consumers, and the winners are going to be producers because they increase their production. The other thing to note is that our quantity demanded decreases, but it's still increased from our original quantity. Quantity supplied increases, but it's still not quite to the full domestic level. Okay, so it's better for producers in this sense. They're producing more. They may be hiring more individuals, and therefore it gains American jobs, but it's still worse off than if we just had a domestic market. But now there's two other areas we need to note. So the first area is this one right here. As we noted, the horizontal distance of this area is the imports. The vertical distance is the tariff. So this area right here is what we call the tariff revenue. This is the amount of money the government brings in as a result of the tariff. Now, if they give that to consumers become better off than they were before. If they give that to producers become better off. And it just depends on what they do with that money. But that's, in a sense, government being better off. But we're still left with two triangles that were there with the free international trade that are no longer there. And those are going to be our deadweight loss. We lose these parts of the market. So we see that reduction in the quantity demanded compared to free trade, and we just lose that. We actually don't get that back. And so this is our dead weight loss. We also see this reduction here of these were international suppliers that no longer can supply because the price is too high. And so that's also dead weight loss. And so now we're less efficient than we are in a free international trade example. But because of, we still have this triangle right here, so we still have this right here, that can still be our gains from trade. And in fact, our gains from trade will also include our government revenue. So because of this area right here, that's still our gains from trade, is we're still more efficient than just a domestic market. But we're not as efficient as a free international trade market.